Welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast. It's been a while, Sean, since we were here talking to the fans. It's great to see you, man, and happy Super Bowl week to you. Unfortunately, it's not the matchup that we wanted, or I guess I didn't really care when it came to the AFC because I don't really like the Bills either. But anyway, it's great to see you, man. How are things, and are you stoked for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, man, sports holiday. This is, if any day deserved to be a holiday, and the day after for those of us who partake on Super Bowl Sunday. You know, I'm sure that people wish it was a holiday on Monday, but yeah, I love this week, man. It's, obviously we prefer the Chiefs not being there as Broncos fans, but it's always just I don't know, it's a culmination of everything that we enjoy, and one of the biggest moments in sports. So I'm pumped, can't wait to watch.
Absolutely. Same here, man. I'm going to be with the family. We're going to be shoveling nachos in our mouth, and it's going to be a good time.
Yep.
But what I will say, something that we are excited about, obviously, is our man, Patrick Surtain, Defensive Player of the Year award. So hats off to him. Absolutely spectacular season. And we were talking earlier, Sean, and I was saying that, we could have had 3 Defensive Player of the Year guys on this team. There was a point, especially after that Colts game, where I thought Nick Bonito was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And then Surtain just kind of kept on that trajectory and just absolutely just shut down the other side of the field for the Broncos. So just wanted to get your thoughts, man, on our guy, Patrick Surtain, winning the Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously so well deserved, and it's so funny when it comes to this, and just people just can't get on board with a shutdown corner. It's the MVP's always got to be a quarterback, and everybody thinks that the Defensive Player of the Year seems to have to be a outside linebacker or a defensive end. And it's just, I know when you and I were talking about it, and what I had said is, like, his best stat is that he usually has no stats, and he's so dangerous. Just like in other sports, you have to match up. You have to go away from this guy and whatever it is on the court, or, in baseball, you have to hit it the other direction, whatever those things may be, to direct it away from a player that's so dangerous. And that's exactly what he is. You've heard, obviously Revis Island, and, Champ Bailey was so great at what he did, and you're just seeing it again. And he's fantastic. Everything he does, and I know you'll speak to it, every statistical category that he's in for his position proves why he got this award. And I'm so happy that he's recognized for it, as a Bronco, of course, but he seems like such a good dude. He's down to earth, he's quiet, and he just kills you every single time, man. There's nothing, best receivers in the world putting up goose eggs every single Sunday, and it's awesome.
Yeah, man. When George Payton made that pick, a lot of people were up in arms. Like, they wanted Justin Fields. They thought that the Broncos were going to definitely go for a quarterback. And it looks like George Payton got it right. And for all the flack that he catches for some of the decisions and things the risks that he's taken, I mean, we got to give him credit for this one. He has drafted an absolute leader, a shutdown player, an elite defender, and someone the Broncos can just depend on for the next 6 years probably. As far as cornerbacks are concerned, he's only 24 years old, so he is not plateauing here. This is not his peak, and that should be scary for the rest of the NFL for a 24-year-old to win Defensive Player of the Year. And I don't know what the statistics are on that, Sean, as far as the ages of the previous winners, but I mean, he's right there, and I don't even think he's in the prime of his career yet. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he's talking about that Travis Hunter life, man, playing offense and doing stuff like that. I think he's growing. I think he's going to do more for this team and on this team. And you're right, as far as a shutdown number 1 best corner in the league, at least through this contract and maybe into, partially into another, and still be, I'm sure, super effective for at least a decade. So it's just, yeah, man, it's one of those positions when they talk about key positions that you have to have: your quarterback, your left tackle, and then a shutdown corner, or, a sacking defensive end, or whatever it is, those types of things, those trench guys. But it takes away one side of the field. You can be bad in so many other things, and he can cover up for that because he's so damn good. And it's awesome, dude. I mean, he's had that nickname since college because he's been a badass since the day he put his cleats on the field back in Alabama, dude. He's proven it. He was said he was the safest pick, I think that was the terminology when we took him. And I don't know if it's safe because you knew he was going to be this good, or what, constituted being safe. But it's a freak show, man. I'm super happy, and I think you're right. This is just the beginning. I think we're going to see more, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, everything about him, and I had to change that light, Sean, because it was bothering me. It's like I wanted to go for the Bronco orange, and it just wasn't. It wasn't fun for me. So sorry, everyone, about that. But one thing that I want to talk about, Sean, when it comes to PS2, that a lot of people don't talk about necessarily, is his tackling and his run support. So if we're looking at his grades on PFF right now, his run defense grade was 15th in the NFL out of 223 cornerbacks. And I know that he's a shutdown cornerback, and I know that he completely locks that side of the field down. But why don't we give him his flowers on run defense as well? Because he really sticks his nose in there and gets big plays when he needs to, and really supports that front seven. And I think that was part of why the Broncos' run defense was so good this year.
Yeah, contributions, right? And open field tackles. I think it's one of those things that you just can't rely on it with so many players in the NFL. And that's how they feel like everything's taken care of. And that allows your safeties, Brandon Jones and them to excel, because you don't have to help there. He's not going to get beat. If he gets beat, he makes the tackle. It's just, to your point. And again, if they rush to the outsides, they got to rush to the opposite side of PS2, because he's going to tackle in space. So it's a lot of cool things that he does on the football field, on top of the spectacular interceptions and just the range. And it's so effortless, dude. Like when you watch him play, he doesn't look like he's even running hard. And I know, you spoke to him when we were talking about the Raiders touchdown, and I watched the highlights, obviously, since he won, and it looks like he's jogging, and he's gapping people.
That's crazy.
He's so effortless and so fast, dude. It's a beautiful thing to watch when you talk about like pure football fans, and like you just talk about those like the big hits back in the day and those types of things you just take for granted. He has that like Deion Sanders type flow, you know what I mean? That effortless flow that Deion had. And so it's cool, man. I don't know how else to describe it. It puts a smile on your face. It's fun. It's cool, dude, for sure.
Yeah, and it's a huge sign, right, that the Broncos are relevant again. Like they proved that this year by making the playoffs, and by drafting Bo Nix and turning him into a quarterback who threw the second most passing touchdowns in NFL history by a rookie. So I mean, that's pretty outstanding. And just to know that all of his teammates speak so highly of him, right? Like you see that montage of people that spoke about him when he won that award. It included Saban and Peyton and all kinds of players around the league. Broncos legends were included in that video. Chris Harris Jr., I think I saw Champ Bailey, or maybe that was another video, but everyone speaks so highly of him. So for him to be the pillar of the Denver Broncos right now, I mean, you're going to attract free agents here. You're going to have people that respect the Broncos. Hopefully that leads to a lot of other things in the future with the Broncos. You're going to have players in college wanting to be drafted by the Broncos. They're going to see that the Broncos are treating their players right. All these things are only good and can lead to positive results for the Broncos in the future. So congratulations to Patrick Surtain. And I won't be surprised if he wins another one or two of these in his career, honestly. So looking forward to all of that. And, that gives us a good opportunity, Sean, to look into the future now. Speaking of that, everyone wants to do a mock draft and talk about free agents and things like that. And I think it would be fun for us to do that as well, to get into the free agent talk. And I know you and I have been discussing pretty consistently about the running back position. I know a lot of Bronco fans, they want to draft a running back in the first round. And I just want to get your thoughts on that before we run through just a couple names here on the free agent list that are going to be running backs and wide receivers. What are your thoughts, Sean, on drafting a running back in the first round?
No. Look, I love Ginty. I love Scattaboo. I think they're great. I think they'll have great careers. I don't think that's your. I don't want to say biggest need, because obviously we went over this and how important it is, but I don't feel like whereas the gap between our best tight end and the tight end we could have and our best running back and the running back we can have, I believe that gap's a lot smaller in the running back room. I believe if you have to get away with one of those guys, and we talked about it, right? The top 3 running backs in the NFL this year were on the street before the season started. They were all free agents. They all picked their destination. The NFL has been devaluing this position for years. I think that Saquon not only proved that to be incorrect, and we'll get into him and this game coming up on Sunday, but I just don't think, for me, I just don't see the value in a first round running back. I don't think that's where we should go. I don't believe that that's the way Sean Payton will go. And if I had my way, I would absolutely go in a different direction in the first round. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the Broncos, not only do I like the talent that's already in the room with Estime and Watson, but I think that if they're going to look for some sort of veteran leadership, we might as well go into it right now. If we're talking about the position, right, of running back, there's some pretty good names out here on the free agent list. They're not going to be like game changer, world beater kind of names, but they're solid names. And at the top of that list is Aaron Jones, age 30. So we got Aaron Jones, Najee Harris is on that list, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Nick Chubb, Alexander Madison, Naheem Miller-Hines, so a J.K. Dobbins. So there's some names on here, Sean. So I just want to get a yes or no from you when I go down this list here, and let's see what you think, starting with Aaron Jones.
I would say yes. I don't think he's going to leave Minnesota, but I would, a pass catching back, it would be great next to Estime, so he would be a yes for me.
Najee Harris.
I would say no, because I don't see a big enough improvement over Javonte or Estime and that type of back that it's just not for me.
Agreed on that one. Jeff Wilson's an interesting one from Miami. He's only 29 years old, coming off of a year with Miami in which he made $3 million. And Aaron Jones was like $7 million. I don't think the Broncos will go anywhere near that for that position. But Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, later in free agency, you have a draft plan. It doesn't move the needle for me. If you need somebody and he's still there once you've gone through the process, I think I'm okay with it. I don't think I'm signing him on day 1 or day 2 when free agent opens, but he's a good player.
So here's the thing, and you're making my point for me. The hierarchy, it just, it's Aaron Jones and then just not very exciting in the free agent pool when it comes to running back. But there is a name here, Sean, that we have talked about before, and he's probably going to want out because Myles Garrett wants out too, and that's Nick Chubb. What's Nick Chubb on your list for the Broncos?
Nick Chubb, when healthy, is one of the best backs in the NFL. And the biggest problem is you have to preface it with when healthy. So I think that's kind of the major difference between, like, say, a Saquon Barkley and somebody like him. Saquon's had injuries, but he's proven that he can be healthy. Nick Chubb just hasn't. He's always hurt. He's always been in a tandem back system, and he's still always hurt. It would have to be the right number for me. If you tell me today I'm getting 17 games out of Nick Chubb, you pay him whatever you have to pay him. But I think the reality is, that's not going to happen, which is sad when you see talent like that and you just can't stay on the field. But I mean, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, he was injured, came back, and then got hurt again this year, if I remember correctly.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
So it's unfortunate, and he's a Bulldog, isn't he?
He is.
I know, I know you have a heart for the Bulldogs, but he's fantastic, dude. It's just I just don't think he can stay healthy, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think the next guy on the list, the last guy that we'll talk about here on the running back free agent list, is the same way. But he's a little bit more appealing just because he's a little bit younger and he's at 26 years old. J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, he had, it kind of scares me a little bit like Javonte, right? Where it was so good. And then he got hurt and you just kind of really haven't seen it. So, I don't know, man. But I guess maybe that's ultimately to the point, right? Like maybe you take a Gene T or you take a Scatterbo and something happens with these guys. It seems inevitable with these running backs, which is why they're so devalued. Is because they're just the tread on the tires, man. It's just between college and touches and things like that. It ends so quickly. And so, yes, if the number's right, to answer your question, absolutely. And veteran leadership is awesome, but I don't want to, these are NFL professional athletes. So I hate to say something like damaged goods, but it's just
for sure.
When it's just hard when they're not staying healthy to justify that when you have an upward trajectory for your team.
Yeah, I think the Broncos can find a lot of value late in the draft. And again, I will say this, and until I'm blue in the face, Blake Watson, undrafted free agent from last year. I really, really like his makeup. And, man, he looked really good in that Chargers game on the few carries that he got. Did he not? And I think Estime is a bowling ball, and I think that the Broncos will probably be more accepting of handing him the football this year because it's going to be his second year. I don't think he had issues with holding onto the football after the first few weeks of the season. I don't remember him dropping the ball, but I also don't remember him, getting very many opportunities either. So I'm going to be interested, Sean, to see how they handle the Estime Watson situation this offseason. I like Jaleel McLaughlin, but I'm not sure that he should be back with the Broncos next year. It's not anything spectacular. I know they want him to be that Alvin Kamara type of player, but I just don't see it myself. And speaking of that, didn't Kamara go in like the fourth round to make our point for us here?
Yeah,
it's like third or fourth round, right?
But and to your point about Jaleel, I mean, in the Super Bowl interviews, Sean Payton said it. They need a joker. So if they need one, they don't have one, right? I mean, if that's what we're talking about. So if they need that player, then he's not currently on the roster. So to your point, if that's what you want Jaleel to be, and I think Marvin Mims is more of that guy if you're going to pick somebody on the roster. So if we're looking for that guy and we don't have the guy for the running back room, then I think you're correct. You go with the young guys on the rookie deals that are making nothing with Watson and Estime, fill in the gap somewhere. But I don't think that there's a no-brainer that you're just like, that's got to be the guy when it comes to the free agents. If they're still there and you've filled other holes and you know what your draft strategy is, sure. And I know that sounds crazy with the way you and I had talked all the way through and up to the playoffs about how we have to have an identity and run the ball. But I think you and I have spoken about it till we're blue in the face. One of those guys could be on this roster. And if we don't give them a chance, then, but I would rather go second, third round in the draft over the majority of the people that you named, to me, in my opinion.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Sean, having guys on the roster that we want to see given a chance. I am not a proponent of a trade for Cooper Kupp. I think the Broncos need an outside threat. They need a number one receiver. And as good as Cooper Kupp is, the experience, he's won a Super Bowl, all that stuff. He's become not very dependable as far as the injuries are concerned. And I'm just not very comfortable giving up a 4th round pick for a guy that plays the same position that Mims and Franklin can play. What are your thoughts on that before we go into the other free agent wide receivers?
Yeah, the number doesn't make sense, right? And not the compensation from a draft perspective, and not what you'd have to pay him. If he gets released and he's on the street, or the Rams pick up a portion of his contract or things like that, then we're talking about something different. But I don't think that they're going to have to, because somebody is going to roll the dice on that. And I just don't think that it's us. I just don't. I know in some of the stuff that I've read about the Broncos talking about the beginning of the season, they don't want to sign somebody that's going to take those touches away from Vele and Franklin and Mims. So unless he's the guy, game changer, number one, T. Higgins type dude, I don't think the Broncos are going to go there. And this draft is so deep, dude. Like, I just don't think Kupp is the guy. I do like him. He's been fantastic. He's, your Stokelys, your Amendolas, your Welkers, he's that type of dude, and probably better, obviously, with the stats he's put up and the Triple Crown he's had and things like that. But he's not that dude anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, and when we're not speaking ill of Cooper Kupp, he's had a spectacular career, especially coming literally out of nowhere in college to have the type of career he has had. But I don't think he's a fit for the Broncos. I don't think he's a fit for the Chargers. I think the two teams that I think of off the top of my head are Buffalo and Baltimore. Those are two teams that I could see going after him. I don't think the Rams will trade him inside of the NFC, but I could be wrong. But if they do, teams like Tampa Bay, if they lose Chris Godwin, could be in there. Which leads me into the 4 receivers that I want to talk about as far as free agent options for the Broncos. You got Stephon Diggs, you have T. Higgins, you have Chris Godwin, and you have Amari Cooper. Keenan Allen is also a free agent, but he's 32 years old. You cannot depend on him. I don't think he's he's one of those guys that you bring in and he's just going to take touches away from guys that we don't want him to take touches away from. So Diggs, Higgins, Cooper, and Godwin. What are your thoughts on those 4 guys right there?
They're all going to cost you big money. And the only one that will hold that value, in my opinion, is T. Higgins. And he's going to be the most expensive one of the group. Stephon Diggs has proved all the places that he's been that he can be a distraction. Besides the talent, he's that Antonio Brown. Go down the list of diva receivers that you're just like, damn, when he plays, he's just off the charts good. But is it worth it? My answer there is no, especially coming off an ACL. Godwin's always hurt. He's fantastic. I love watching him play. He's always hurt. Every year he's hurt. Anybody that plays fantasy football knows that he's always hurt. And Amari Cooper's he's not a 1 anymore, I don't think. I think he probably would serve best staying in Buffalo, and maybe they get a 1. But to me, the only name on the list, if you're going to spend money on a free agent wide receiver, is T. Higgins. I would rather, and I know this is kind of not what we're doing, but I would rather trade for Garrett Wilson than I would even go with T. Higgins. But if I'm going to spend the mountain of free agent money that we have on a receiver, T. Higgins is the only free agent that I spend that money on.
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson is the perfect fit for the Broncos offense, plus a change of scenery for him to come over here and be the number 1 wide receiver. I think that would be an outstanding move by the Broncos. I'm not sure after getting all their draft capital back this year that they're actually going to want to do that. But I think that's got to be the move if you're the Broncos. I don't want any part of Stephon Diggs for the reasons that you mentioned and the fact that he tore his ACL this past year at the age of almost 32. It's probably not something you want to bring in. And plus, we don't need – I'm not going to say that it was the reason that CJ Stroud regressed, because they did fire Slowick as their offensive coordinator. There was a lot of stuff going on there, but I just don't think that would be beneficial to Bo Nix to bring in a diva wide receiver like that. And the same thing with T. Higgins. I don't think that he is someone that the Broncos should bring in for cultural reasons. I don't want a diva like that on this team. And I think people are probably going to say, well, Garrett Wilson's a diva. I really don't think he is. I think he answered some questions when he was asked by the New York media, but he was calm and he didn't complain. And he basically just said, it doesn't feel like I'm part of the offense here, and
He's not.
for him to exactly. So like, I think he's had it with the Jets, and I don't think the Jets are on an upward trajectory anyway. So why not go out and offer the Jets a couple draft picks for Garrett Wilson? I'd like to see what the Broncos do there. I'm out on all of these free agent wide receivers, though. I really am, for various reasons: injuries, drama, how much it's going to cost you. I just don't think the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos, the way George Payton operates, is going to just throw a bunch of money at a wide receiver when they have Franklin and Vele and Sutton and Mims. They already have these guys in place. They just need like a helpful number one receiver to help open up the rest of the guys. So I won't be upset if the Broncos go after T. Higgins. I don't see it happening. I could see them going after Chris Godwin, but his market's going to be a little bit smaller than I think people anticipate just because of the injuries. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in free agency. And then, of course, that leads us to, Sean, the draft. And the Joker thing that we keep talking about over and over again. Is Colston Loveland really a Joker? I don't think so. But do I think that he's going to be a better tight end in the NFL than Tyler Warren? I do, actually, especially if he gets into the right offense. Now, there's going to be a lot of chatter about him going to the Chargers to play with his old coach, Jim Harbaugh. But the Broncos can prevent that from happening because they have a pick, three picks ahead of the Chargers, I believe. I think the Chargers are 23rd or 24th, something like that. And, I mean, they could trade up, but that would be silly if they did that to get Colston Loveland. But what are your thoughts on the first round, Colston Loveland versus Tyler Warren? I know we've already talked about running back, and that's not really something that we think the Broncos should do. Or is there maybe a wide receiver that you have your eye on at number 20 for the Broncos?
No, I mean, honestly, we've been talking about or having the anticipation for us talking about this thing. I've been thinking about it a lot. And Warren or Loveland, for me, the answer is yes. And I don't care which one it is, to be completely honest with you. Fair. And the way I was looking at it is, Peyton had Dallas Clark or Julius Thomas. Brady had Gronk. Elway had Shannon. You kind of just go down this list, and the safety blanket of a game-changing tight end is just you just have to have it. And we've been searching and we've tried and we've gone in these mid rounds and guys that were injured. And we've just been trying and trying. The Dulciches, the Okawebunams, the Jake Butts. Like, we've just been trying and failing for so long.
Noah Fant.
Yeah, well, I mean, they drafted him high. They just
first round, yeah.
Russell Wilson, Noah probably would have been fine, but they got to have it. And I think the value of that, and would one of the running backs we talk about be better than the running backs that we have? Maybe. Are there some just ridiculous wide receivers that you can get? Sure. But I think the fall off from these two to the next tight ends in comparison of the fall off from maybe the top few receivers to the next crop of receivers is not nearly as dramatic. And if you think it's wide receiver, if you think it's running back, that's a second round problem to me. You got to get Warren. You got to get Loveland. One of them's going to be there. You don't allow one of these guys to slip through your hands like Brock Bowers. You just can't. It's time. It's time. It's going to be a pass-catching tight end over the middle of the field is going to be a game changer for Bo Nix. If you keep Cortland Sutton and the receivers that you have, or if you add somebody to that dynamic in this offense is just going to change everything. We got to have it. I don't think that there's any other answer to this question, in my opinion. I've looked at the mocks for all kinds of people, and they're, obviously people want to be wild and they want to be the cool guy that picks some position that makes no damn sense. Draft one of these tight ends, piggybacking with Bo Nix for the next 10 to 15 years, and be done with it. Got to be one of those two guys.
Yeah, I'm actually a proponent, and I do think this is going to happen. I think the Broncos are not only going to draft a tight end at 20, but they're going to sign one too. Because we know that rookie tight ends take a while to develop, right? Especially if they want them to be doing everything, blocking and all that kind of stuff. So he probably won't come in and be a world beater in his first year, regardless of which one we draft. So I would like the Broncos to pair Colston Loveland with a Mike Gesicki, because Mike Gesicki is a free agent. He's 29 years old. He's the perfect bridge tight end, if you will, for the Broncos to have two different threats at the tight end position, one learning from the other. And Gesicki's had a solid career, and obviously he flourished with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and maybe with them needing to sign Chase, there's not enough money to go around, and maybe he ends up coming to the Broncos. But I think the Broncos will attack that in free agency and in the draft. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and listening to Joe, it's Super Bowl week too. He's already talking about restructuring to keep these guys but that's the point, right? He sees the value in keeping Gesicki. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to let him go. And so do I think we can get him? I don't think so, because I think he likes his situation. Do I think you're nailing it on the head? Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with having Mark Andrews and Likely, you know what I mean? Like having Gesicki and the other white dude. I can't remember his name right now, but
it's Drew Sample.
Yeah. So it's just, I think it's such a great position of need. The great tight ends prove it time and time again. I left out Mahomes and Kelsey. I know they're your favorites. So, as far as these quarterback and tight ends, it makes so much sense, man. And I just think it's really the missing piece on offense. I think if you said nothing changes in 2025, but one thing on offense, I think a drastic improvement in that position group makes the Broncos go from where they are to where they could be so much more than every position. And we've got the line, right? We've got the quarterback. We're talking about running back and tight end. It's a good problem to have, but I love where your head is at. If we could get a Gesicki, we have the money. Tight ends do not break the bank in free agency, and you draft one of these guys. Let him learn from that. You put Gesicki on a 3-year deal. It's probably what, a 2+1 with an option is probably what it really realistically is. He could be your bridge. Maybe he sticks for the third, or you figure out the contract then. But I think that's a perfect situation. I think you nailed it. If you can make that happen, count me in, man. I'm on board for all that.
Yeah, and I will say that the Broncos, they won't stop there. They will definitely be looking on defense for free agents as well. And as far as I know, Nick Bolton is going to be a free agent for the Chiefs, and that is a guy that the Broncos need to target for sure. I know he's going to want to stay in Kansas City if they can make it work, but if he somehow gets out of that situation and hits the market, the Broncos need to be on that. I think that would be a huge, huge addition to the Broncos that they need. They need that athletic ability. They need that speed. They need that playmaking at the linebacker position. But we'll talk more about that later on. And speaking of Nick Bolton, Sean, it's Super Bowl week, which is why I don't have the lights on, because it's a little more somber mood because it's the Chiefs playing in the Super Bowl. But we have one heck of a game on paper. If you're a true football fan, I know a lot of people are boycotting the Super Bowl or whatever. That's fine, but
no, they're not.
Football fans want to watch this game because it's a good matchup. Yeah, I know.
It's social media. You're not missing this game. You're dumb. Don't even say it out loud. It makes you sound dumb.
Exactly. So on paper, Sean, and we are a little bit biased, but we see Philadelphia as the better football team, do we not? And I mean, in every facet, pretty much, they're the better football team.
Yeah, I mean, the pundits are all picking Philly. It seems like everywhere you go, people are picking Philly. And before, as we kind of transition too, I mean, I think there's a linebacker on the other side of the field that's going to be a free agent too. Isn't Bond an Eagle?
Yes. I don't
So,
know if
I
he's
mean,
a free agent, but yes.
I'm fairly confident that he is, and I'm fairly confident he played for Sean in New Orleans. So I could be wrong on both those fronts. I feel like I've read that and I've seen that. But yes, there's a linebacker on both sides of the field that could be free agents, that could be perfect fits. But not to go back too far, because obviously we're talking about the Super Bowl. I do agree
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm saying, yeah. No, you're good.
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously we're going to root for the Eagles because you're never going to root for anybody in your division. And you know better than any. I've one of my spawns is a Chiefs fan, and it's one of the hardest things as a dad and a diehard Broncos fan. But I'm also not that guy that's like you gotta root for my team. Like I let him do his thing. But that's a different conversation. But
I would
so I
disown
know
him, but I get it. Yeah.
trying to teach a 10-year-old on why I have to hate the Chiefs is a difficult concept.
Well,
But
and it's because the Broncos weren't good during his early years. You know, they've been
yeah,
bad for 8 years, or they had been before this. So I don't blame him. And that's what kids like to root for the cool team or whatever. But he'll come back home.
yeah, it'll just give him time. Yeah. But I do think that on paper, Saquon he's just a freak, dude. I feel like he's destined to be the MVP. But I also do think the Chiefs are going to try and stop him and make Jalen try and beat them. But I think I think a lot of people do that and they underestimate him, and he proves that he's a capable quarterback. So I don't fear that either. And then you kind of just have to play it straight up, and then Saquon's going to punish you. So yeah, I can't wait to see it. I obviously hope for the Eagles to pull it out, and I honestly am picking them to do so. I think that they will.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to talk about is if you do you watch the Bills and the Chiefs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one thing that the Bills do this sometimes, and Sean Payton does this in the playoffs too. They get too cute with the play calling. And had the Bills just stuck with that running game, I mean, the Chiefs could not stop their running game in the second half. So the sooner that the Eagles get to the run game with the most elite running back in the NFL, the sooner off they're going to have more control of this football game. Obviously, turnovers are the great equalizer, and the Chiefs are known for making plays on special teams and all that. And their coach is Andy Reid, and we know he's a great coach and innovator and all these things. But if the Eagles just run the football, I don't think that the Chiefs have an answer for them. I really don't. And I do think that Saquon is going to have a great game. But I have a dark horse MVP for you. And the reason I say this is because if you look at the defense versus tight end stats this season, the Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most yards against tight ends this year. So I think in order for the Eagles to not only get ahead in this game, but to secure the game late, is they need to feed Dallas Goedert. And Dallas Goedert is my guy to score 2 touchdowns and win MVP in this game, because the Chiefs have been very very susceptible to tight ends this year, which is weird because they have Nick Bolton on that team, and they have some good linebackers. But that's my dark horse pick, and I do think that not only will the Eagles win the game, and I'm not very known for my good predictions this year because the Broncos did not beat the Bills, but I think the Eagles are going to win by 2 touchdowns. And the reason I say that is because the entire focus of this week has been the refs, the integrity of the game. Do the Chiefs get help? Did they get help on the way to the Super Bowl? Did they get helped in the last Super Bowl? Did they get helped in the Super Bowl against the 49ers the first time? They did. And then the other thing, if you really, really look at his numbers, Patrick Mahomes plays okay in the Super Bowl, but he's never played like outstanding in any of these games. So I think that going against arguably the best defense he's seen in any of these Super Bowls, from an overall standpoint, I think he's going to struggle. And I think that the Eagles are going to cause turnovers. That's what they do. And I really think they're going to win the game going away. I know the NFL doesn't want that, and they will try to prevent it as much as possible. But I also think that the NFL is in this weird situation where they have to overcorrect because they don't want to lose fans going into next year by handing the Chiefs all these calls in a big game again. And we all know last time, Sean, they played the Eagles that bogus pass interference on an uncatchable ball that ended the game for the Eagles on third down. I think if the NFL pulls something like that again, they're going to be in big trouble because the ratings were already down in the first couple rounds of the NFL playoffs this year. And so I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on that. And, I've got our score prediction of 34-18 with the Eagles winning. So.
Yeah. So to some of your points. So as far as, running the ball, I think that even maybe one of the bigger points for that with Saquon is you take Spagnuolo out of the game and those exotic blitzes and those. Why did Buffalo lose? Well, a multitude of things, but for the final play of the game, it's an exotic blitz. They didn't catch it at all, and they got a free runner to Josh Allen on fourth down. And if Saquon has the ball, that doesn't happen. And so if you're feeding somebody like that, I think taking Spagnuolo out of the game as much as possible from a defensive perspective is huge. I also believe this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be more of a swallow the whistle type of situation. And I feel like they're going to let them play a little bit to just quiet everybody down, to your point. If it's egregious, it's going to get cold. Do I think that if you get too close to Patrick and you do something you're not supposed to do, is it going to get called? Probably. But I do think that they're going to try and swallow their whistles a little bit and let these dudes play. So I do think it'll be, I think the spread's 49.5. So I agree with you. Your spread puts it higher than that. I think it'll be closer. I don't know if it'll be 2 touchdowns. I think however it finishes up, whether it's, the Chiefs scoring and then trying to come back and score again, I do think it'll end up in like a 1-score-ish game. So maybe 10, but I think it'll be more of like a 7 or 8 point game when it's all said and done. But I really do think that they're going to let them play. And there are highlight reel dudes on both teams. Mm-hmm. So Saquon, Worthy, Brown. There's just a lot of Pacheco. There's just a lot of Kelsey, Devontae Smith. I mean, obviously I'm just name rattling, and I think, we talked about it before we got started. Jalen Carter is a game wrecker. And I think that the Eagles defense, their secondary is really good with Slay and DeJean. So I'm excited to see it, man. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's always stressful watching a division rival, and you just hope for the best if they lose. But I think it's going to be fun, man. I think it's going to be enjoyable, even if we have to swallow another Chiefs win. I think it'll ultimately be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, excellent stuff, Sean. I agree with everything that you said there. Probably just not the score, because I think that the Eagles, I don't think they're going to blow them out the whole game, but I think the Eagles will pull away late with like a Saquon 55-yard touchdown or something. I just don't think, if the Eagles have the lead in the fourth quarter, I just don't see a scenario, unless they turn the ball over, where they don't hand the ball to Saquon and just eat the clock and win the game. So I think they'll be up, maybe it'll be 26-18 at that point, and the Chiefs are like, we need to stop right here, and we still got a chance, and then the Eagles just put it away. Yeah. I foresee a situation like that. But the other thing, Sean, before we wrap this thing up, how many close games can they possibly play in a row?
Yeah.
They have to be blown out at some point, and I think this is the perfect spot for the entire world to see the Chiefs get blown out. And let's be honest, they are probably the worst 15-2 football team we've ever seen, right? Just based on the way they played all season long. And we have our reservations because the one touchdown they scored against the Broncos was on a phantom illegal contact penalty that nobody saw. And they would have lost that game 10-9 if it weren't for that call. So, we've seen it all year. I don't think that the NFL is going to help them this year in this moment. Sure, do they want a three-peat? Sure, why not? But they have them there, and I think that's good enough. The ratings are there. They don't need to win to get the ratings there. They can set up the storyline next year. Can the Chiefs get back to the Super Bowl after losing one to the, like whatever. But I think that that's something to watch, and eventually their luck has to run out. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for that to happen. So I'm looking forward to the game too, Sean. And of course, we'll talk about it a little bit on our next podcast. But of course, we are a Broncos podcast, and we're going to stay focused on the Broncos as much as possible. So we are going to be bringing you guys a lot of draft coverage, free agents coverage, as all the news that comes out about the Broncos. We're going to be putting out more podcasts more often as well to keep in touch with you guys and try to grow this thing. So we appreciate you listening to us and supporting us from the ground level is where we're at right now. So we'll look fondly back on these first few episodes and just see how far we've come. Thanks to everybody that listens. So find us on Spotify, find us on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube as well. Follow us at broncos.source. Follow me at Mile High Mez, and follow Sean to the end of time, apparently, because he doesn't put his handle up here.
Right here. Follow me right here.
To the ends of the earth, baby. All right, cool. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in, Sean. Excellent insight as always. Look forward to more with you, buddy, this offseason. And go Broncos.
Yes, sir. Can't wait.
And for 1 week, go Eagles. Talk to you guys soon.
See ya.